I love the look of luxury, but knowing that I got it at a great price. And I feel like you're like me too. And that's why I know you're going to love Quince. Quince is my go-to for luxury essentials at affordable prices. I get DMs all the time. Where did you get that sweater? I'm telling you, I got it at Quince. You know why? They offer high quality items at prices within reach. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So they do this by partnering directly with top factories. So Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And the best part, it only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And who doesn't love that? In fact, the thing you need to get right now are the toasted almond silk pajamas. It's a beautiful gift for someone in your life or just for yourself. So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/KKC to get your free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just looking out the window at my new Tangelo tree and my Meyer lemon bush. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers, including me? They have all the plants that your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Plus, their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures that your plants arrive happy and healthy to your door. Plus, you get support from trained plant experts. They're on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off select plants and other deals. And listeners to this show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code KateCasey at checkout. That's an additional 15% off fastgrowingtrees.com using the code KateCasey at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code KateCasey. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Kate Casey to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. Hope that you're having a great start to your week. And back with me in this episode is Jonathan Mark. We're going to talk about two different missing person cases. Both feature stories of little boys. One is the disappearance of Paul Fronczak. On April 27th, 1964, a one-day-old infant, Paul Joseph Fronczak, was kidnapped from the Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. And then the other case is about Bobby Dunbar, an American boy whose disappearance at the age of 4 and apparent return were widely reported in newspapers across the United States in 1912. Both are cases that I find are endlessly fascinating. The story of Paul Fronczak is featured in the documentary The Lost Sons, and you can watch that on Hulu or Amazon Prime. It is a story that stayed with me because I saw the original interview with Paul Fronczak in 2013. Barbara Walters interviewed him for 2020, and then she had him on The View. And I was thrilled when I saw that there was a documentary about his story. So, of course, I had to interview him. And you can listen to that interview with Paul in episode 398. So I revisit that story with Jonathan and then the story of Bobby Dunbar because I feel like these two cases sort of cross over. And I feel like I've been talking about the Paul Fronczak story as of late. I sometimes forget, I've done this show for so long and I've done so many episodes that there are people that are maybe new to the show or maybe missed an episode. And I often assume that everybody's kind of aware of all these stories. And the truth is they are ones that for me kind of stay with me, but I think sometimes get lost in the shuffle of all the other crazy news stories of the world. So I want you to join me by kind of sinking your teeth into both of these disappearance cases. And I think it's interesting too, because the first one took place in 1912 and the other in 1964. But as I mentioned, there are similar themes to both of them. And then looking through the lens of 2025 and how those cases may have shaped the way that investigations go or the way that we look at cases of missing persons. So we talk about that. And then we also talk about the Bachelor finale. That ended last night, and Grant and Julia are very happy together. And we kind of joke about watching the finale and trying to put ourselves in both of their shoes, because if you're Juliana, you really don't know as you walk up to that podium, is this going to end in an engagement? And if it may not, I should have some sort of getaway plan. So the way that she approaches her little speech before she's given pause and he gets to say how he feels about her, there is a little bit of like a gateway for, okay, if in fact you don't want to be with me and you choose the other person, I don't look like a complete fool. And then Jonathan also tells you what it's like to be approached by the Bachelor about potentially being a lead. So that's kind of a good backstory. And of course, he like knows a lot of these dudes that have been on the show and what their lives are like after the show and why it would complicate being in a relationship when you have the rest of the world now really invested in who you are and what comes when you go out into the world and you have a bunch of girls that are like, can I take a picture with you? So we get to the bottom of all of that. I hope that you share this with the people that you know in your life that love not just pop culture stories, but true crime stories. And I know that there are so many podcasts to listen to, but when you do share these episodes, let the good people in your life know that I'm there for you all week long. I'm giving you 6 episodes. So if you are looking for someone to take along with you during the day, whether you're on a long commute, you're on a long walk, maybe you're shopping, maybe you're traveling, maybe you like to listen to something as you work, I am grateful for all of you for making me part of your day. And I never forget how special that is. So please enjoy this episode with Jonathan Mark. Jonathan, last night, ABC aired the Bachelor finale. Now, this is a show I have dipped in and out over the years, but I remember in the beginning of the show, this was way before social media, where you would have the finale, and the weeks before, you were trying to look through every finale photo, figuring out like the length of the fingers, what like the sequin in the background, like who the finalist was. That secret was protected like it was the JFK files from the government. It was insane. Yeah. But now, I mean, like everybody's kind of like, oh, it's a joke. They don't even end up together. But I don't know. Right. It's sort of like you torture yourself and you come back every season and you get manipulated. So I'm assuming that you probably, pay little attention to The Bachelor. Caveat that with, you do have a lot of friends that have been involved with the show. Tell me what it's like for you to roll with dudes that have been involved with The Bachelor and Bachelor Nation. When they go out into the world and you're at bars, like, do women flip out?
It's funny. Yes, I will say women definitely flip out more than men. Every time we go out in this city, because a lot of them do live in Manhattan, they like travel and then they have their like home hub in Manhattan. So we'll go out and stuff, and girls will go up to them and be like, "Oh my God, are you blah 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 from The Bachelor?" And then you can see them being like, "All right, I now have to take pictures." And I'm telling you, there's like a lot of girls. Now there's a mixture between the single girls and the girls with their boyfriends. And I love watching both in interactions. It is hilarious to me because the single girls throw themselves at them. I mean, like, they literally could go with like one shoe on, a hole in the center of their shirt, and still have success like later on in the night. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. But some of them will be like, shit, like the boyfriend's here. So they go up to the boyfriend.
It's like a buzzkill.
Yeah, they go up to the boyfriend first to like introduce themselves and like kind of talk to them and win them over, and then take the picture with like the guy's girlfriend or whatever. But it is like kind of
good move.
Just to like be a fly on the wall and just to watch it. It is so funny.
Well, then I think about all the times that they've gotten engaged to someone they barely know, and then they go out into the real world, and everyone who watches the show is like, well, when's the wedding? And over the last, 10 years, most of them say, we're going to take it slow. We've got to live together. But given this information that you've given me over the years, I now think, well, that's because I want to see if I can get a bigger, better deal, right?
Kind of. And they all like, it's funny you say that because they all say they want to live together, or they want to live with like the girl that they were, dating on the show, whatever. But they all live with other Bachelor guys in like an apartment. So it's like an apartment with like 3 Bachelor guys, and they're typically in like beautiful like buildings. Like,
because they get a deal from the building.
Yes. Like there was one time I went in to hang out with a few of them. And it was in like this luxurious building that like LeBron James plays basketball. Bieber will rent out the court to play basketball. And they live like 20 stories up from that. So like on any given day, they can go and just like try to shoot some hoops or something, like play some basketball, and Bieber is there. Or like Steph Curry's there, or LeBron James is there. And I said to them, I was like, it must be nice, man. It must be nice. Because I lived in the city for like a little bit, and I'm telling you, those prices are nuts. And then I would ask them, I'd be like, how much are you paying? And it's like peanuts. And I'm like, how the hell are you paying like nothing to live in this like amazing building? And they're like, yeah, we worked out a deal because we were on The Bachelor and with like the network and everything. Like, yeah. Kidding me. I mean, what the hell? But they're awesome people. I like hanging out with them. They're good people, like really good people.
So then you look at the finale, and another thing I thought that was so funny, I was watching last night, and he's got these two women, and of course they're dressed up like it's the junior prom. And I'm like, the last time I wore a dumb dress like that. And there's this really shitty situation where the two women that are in the final, they don't even know if they're going to be chosen. So you kind of have to walk up and have a speech that provides yourself with a getaway plan. So you don't 100%. Look stupid. So Juliana walks up, and I just felt like the whole speech it was like double speak. It was sort of like, I'm paraphrasing. We've fallen deeply in love, but we don't know what the next chapter is.
Right.
Like, I can't imagine a life without you, but I also know life is never guaranteed. It's like,
right.
Gotta give yourself an out. And he's always, the Bachelor provides zero context and basically says nothing.
Oh my God, that's so funny you say that, because I was watching it and I was like, he's just saying nothing. Like nothing. And then his speech back to either one was super little. Like, it wasn't like super emotional or anything. Like, the girls were crying, and you're right, they were like, I love you, however, life is not guaranteed.
Right.
Like, and he was just being like, yeah, like, had such a great time with you.
Yeah, dude, it was fun. You had a blast.
Not my person. Yeah, you are not my person. I'm like, what? Like,
that's it.
I'm like, how can you say it with like a straight face? Like, I would be like, my heart would be beating through my chest. I'm like, how am I even doing this right now? Like,
yeah.
Like for like people don't even know this, but like I was asked to be on The Bachelor.
Remember that?
Yeah, because I called you, and it was wild. It was wild. Like, my friend Pete Weber, who's Pilot Pete, like submitted me without me knowing, and he was.
By the way, to his credit and to the credit of like production and people, it does look good on paper, because the element of, and you've been asked to be on Big Brother too, the element of a medium and how that would go down in the confessionals. Like, okay, Loretta says XYZ, but I just tapped into her grandfather and he said she's full of shit. So that actually would be pretty great. But the problem was you were in a relationship. So it's like, you're not going to go on. However, yours truly said, can you just fake it? And I'll beg Jessica and I'll make it all work in the end. Can you just be the Bachelor? Because my real dream is to be like asked to be a participant in like hometown dates. And just grill the finalists. But you couldn't do it.
I couldn't. Yeah. And what's funny is they were kind of telling me, they were like, just like archive your pictures with Jess. And I'm like, archive them? I
know. That's right. And they did. Yep.
And I was like, what do you mean archive? And they're like, well, like, it's not guaranteed you're going to find your person. So I'm like, what?
Yeah. Because they're like, we want to make a good show. Like, just like put her in the back burner, tell her like, we'll see how this stuff goes. And then, but I think what actually happens is that happens with a lot of those dudes. And they say to the girlfriend, like, listen, it's going to be better for us in the long run. I'm going to get a sweet apartment in New York City. Steph Curry's going to play basketball with me. Everyone's going to know who you are. And we're going to like be killing the game.
100%. Because I do read stories where people are like, wait a minute, like 9 months leading up to it, or like 9 days leading up to it, he took a picture with this girl who he was holding hands with at like a farmer's market. I'm like, shit, like they do this to a lot of people, but I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't even bring it up to Jess, because I was like, I was like, that would break her heart. And I'm like, I can't do that. So eventually I showed her the emails and stuff, and she saw my responses being like, I can't do that. Like, there's no way. Yeah. And she was laughing. She's like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, like, I swear to God, like, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you're married and all, but I do really regret the fact that I was not given that opportunity to be involved.
I know, but there's always Big Brother. I was kidding. So
you're going to make it up in the long run. Well, and then also I was thinking about watching it about when you were going to propose. I remember you sent me pictures of the wedding ring, and then the day before you proposed, I let the girls see the picture of the ring, and they were flipping out. And then after you proposed, you sent us the picture of like just when you got engaged, and they were like just dying. That's like money for little girls. The whole like proposal story, they're really your demo. Like if you've got a good like engagement story.
Yeah, and your daughters like called me too, which I thought was really they were like, "Oh my God,
so like, cute."
Yeah, it was the cutest thing. It was honestly the cutest. But my heart was beating through my chest. I'm like, I had a speech, and I didn't say a single thing that I had planned. Not a single thing. And so I compared to The Bachelor. I'm like, if they're going in front of cameras and they have to have a speech, and you don't know if you're being chosen, I'm like, I don't know how they do that. Like, I couldn't even remember like what hand the ring was in. Like, I was like, where is this?
Yeah, I got to say in retrospect, I did think you might shit a brick. You were real nervous. You were like confident. And then like in the couple of days before and then the day before you were an absolute lunatic for sure.
Yeah. I'm like, I had like, I mean, you know this, I had all the odds stacked against me with her family, like telling her. And then like they share an Amazon account. Someone bought like an overnight bag because I flew her parents up. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that I remember now. That was,
I'm like, what the hell? Like, and just like knew, and she got her nails done like the day before, got a new dress.
Yeah, but you know what? God bless, because no one wants to get engaged and you don't want to have like janky nails.
No, I know.
That's a nightmare for a girl.
I was like texting her friends. I'm like, make sure she has her nails done. Like, make sure, blah, blah, blah. And to their credit, they like really tried their best. But Jess was like, well, I saw my mom's Amazon purchases, which was an overnight bag randomly. And my dad called me and was like, hey, why is John calling me? Like,
oh, God.
Yeah. Like,
Jesus.
Yeah. It was like the odds were so stacked up against me. It was crazy. So I got nervous because I wanted to make it special and surprise her. And I knew that she knew. So I was like, this sucks. Like, I can't even surprise her. So the only thing that I did that was like surprising is the vineyard I was telling you about, that I had them like, I reached out to them and they had this thing called like the Love Corner or whatever. I don't even know what, like the Love Garden or some shit.
That's smart.
And yeah. So like, in my mind, I thought this was good. In retrospect, it was horrible. But I was like telling her that we're going to go to a winery because she loves going to the wineries like out east on Long Island. And I was like, all your friends are meeting us at this vineyard first. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to go work our way back to all the other vineyards because it's all on one road, kind of all these different vineyards. And all of a sudden she sees my brother's car too.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I mean, he did hide it. She was just like truly, really looking. Like if you were just to go to the vineyard, you would never see it. But she was really looking. So then
she's like, why is my fourth grade teacher's car parked outside?
Yeah, why is my childhood friend that I haven't spoken to since the 7th grade lurking around the corner?
Right.
That's weird. But yeah, so I did that. They kind of like took that garden spot, put rose petals everywhere because it was in like the Love Rose Garden thing with candles around. Yeah, it was cool. But then she like turned to me. She's like, I knew this was happening. But I kind of did surprise her for like when she came back to my parents' house with like all her friends and family there. Yeah. So like she only knew her mom was coming up because of that stupid freaking Amazon stuff that like they share. There's an account with their mom. Like,
I know I'm a little bit concerned about that, but now you're married, so that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, exactly. So like I made a joke with like her mom. I was like, you need to get off the account, like stat.
Like cut the umbilical cord. We're done.
Yeah, like you gotta cut it off. But I feel for these people on The Bachelor. I mean, whether it's the guy or the girl, but in this case, obviously the girl going up and doing that, like
torture. There are so many things in life we just never get around to. Taking up that hobby, cleaning out the garage, the little things that don't really make huge differences in our lives. Yet, there's one thing that most of us have probably been neglecting that can have a huge impact on our family's future. It's life insurance. And with SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is easier and more affordable than you may think. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. If you have high blood pressure, no problem. If you have diabetes, that's fine too. And even if you have heart disease, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote, they shop and you save. So get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/realitylife. Go to SelectQuote.com/realitylife today and get started. That's SelectQuote.com/realitylife. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Now, I've said that my goal this year is to stay more hydrated. You can gift yourself the everyday indulgence of extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV, powered by Live Hydroscience. They've got true-to-fruit flavors that keep you hydrated. And you can find all your favorite hydration multiplier flavors on their website. I have to say my favorite flavor is the sugar-free raspberry lemonade because it's a bright, zero sugar flavor combining notes of ripe, freshly picked raspberries and citrusy, zesty lemon. And it really gets me going on my day. I think you're going to love it too. I like feeling like I'm hydrated all day long. And if you're somebody who's outdoors or plays sports, this is an absolute must-have. You can break the mold and own your own ritual. Just 1 stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. It's 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. And also 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Treat yourself to extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code KateCasey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code KateCasey at liquidiv.com. All right, well, listen, we're wishing Grant and Juliana the best. I respect the fact that they're like, don't look forward to a wedding. We have to actually know if we, can live together. And they're a gorgeous couple. So should they decide to get married and have children, get those kids modeling contracts ASAP.
Easily. And I think he's moving, or he's going to be
He's moving to Boston.
Yeah. Like he's spending a lot of his time there.
God bless him. I like that too, that they're not going to live in LA. I thought actually, thank you for reminding me. Okay. They might have a shot.
Yeah, because he had a house in Houston, he was saying, and then he was like, I'm going to go to Boston and just like keep the house there just in case if something happens. But
his family lives there too, so I think
and I know he's like mending his relationship with his dad and all that stuff too, and all that. So
I know I also like that when the leads are a little bit more honest about the complications of their own family life. Because years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a guy named Ben Higgins. He has a very popular podcast with Ashley Iaconetti, but Ben, God bless, but like he's like a perfect person. You meet people in life and you're like, that guy is just killing the game. Like everything comes up roses. And it was like his parents were still married and he like was very like strong in his faith. And it's just the girl that he would choose also came from parents that are still married and they go to church on Sunday and they've never had a pimple, the whole deal.
Yeah.
So I like it when someone's like, my dad has been in rehab and we're working through our relationship. I'm like, that to me is way more realistic.
It is, because like not everyone that goes on like a show, like in general, especially like a dating show, has that perfect like life or family.
No, everyone's got weird family. Yeah.
Yeah. They come to like the hometown and it's like rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies everywhere. It's like, that's not life. Like that's 100% not life. So it was cool to see that.
By the way, after your wedding, I had the best time doing like the breakdown. I'm like, okay, I met this relative. What's that story? And then I picked it and you were like, wait, they told you that? Yeah, that to me is my favorite part of a wedding is the reception when I sit and I talk to everybody and they tell me all the family secrets.
Yeah, and you met Janice too, which was like a huge part.
Janice, love her. Yeah, I actually I think I set her up with her daughter with one of the groomsmen.
With one of my friends.
Did they ever?
He wasn't even a groomsman. I played college lacrosse with them.
Low key, like, did they hook up ever?
I don't think so.
What a bummer.
Because the problem is that Janice's daughter, she lives in Manhattan. He lives on like the Long Island area, but she travels all the time too. So she was like living in like Scotland for a while and whatever. So
also when they met, he was absolutely wasted,
hammered.
But he was going to leave. He was going to leave the reception. I was like, "Yeah, where are you going? What's going on? Do you have a girlfriend? What's happening?" And then he's like,
"Yeah, I remember that. Yeah."
Huh? And then,
of course, you did that. And then you set them up. Of course,
like, giving Janice the bat signal. Like, we got someone land in the plane right now. Yeah, he's cute.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Maybe that's a good spin-off show I'd like to pitch to a television network. Plant me at weddings, and I can be a great wing person.
Yeah. Any like family function, I feel like you'll just meet someone's family member and just get their entire life story. And
there could be a clock. They could give me a clock. Like, find out as much as you can about these three people.
In 45 minutes.
In 45 minutes. Yes.
You have 45 minutes to find out this person's life story.
Right. Okay.
That would be amazing. I think you call a lot of great shows like that. Like, every time you call me, I'm like, it would be a good show.
Your mouth to God's ears. Or the network ears. Yes. Okay. So this weekend, I went to a friend's house. It was a bunch of kids. And of course, I found myself having a very long and meaningful conversation with the high school freshman about documentaries.
Yep.
And I mentioned to him that one of my great obsessions in my life is the story of Paul Fronczak. And I wanted to bring everybody up to speed on this story. And if you were looking for like a mind-bending documentary, I got to tell you guys, this is one to watch. So, and by the way, it's October of 2013, and I become transfixed by a story told by Barbara Walters on 2020 about a man obsessed with finding out who he really is. It stayed with me. And then when this documentary just came up on the periphery, I was like, I have to find this man. I ended up interviewing him. Have never forgotten the story or my interview. So Paul Joseph Fronczak was born on April 26, 1964, at Michael Reese Hospital in Chicago, Illinois. That hospital has now been closed down. So he's born on the 26th. A day later, on April 27th, there's a woman, and she's dressed up as a nurse, and she enters the room of Paul's mother, Dora, and tells her that the doctor needed to do some further examinations on the baby. So she hands the baby to the nurse, but the woman walked out of the hospital. So there was an investigation, the largest manhunt in Chicago history up to that point. It involved 175,000 postal workers, 200 police officers, and the FBI. 600 homes were searched by midnight that night, but there was no trace of the baby. It is the reason for the code pink at hospitals when someone has a baby. You have to get a pink bracelet. So that's April of 1964. Well, in July of 1965, a toddler boy with a black eye was found abandoned in a stroller in a busy shopping center in Newark, New Jersey. No one comes forward to claim this little boy, and so he was put into foster care, and he was given the name Scott McKinley. The FBI later notifies the Fronczaks, and they say that they believe Scott McKinley, who is in foster care, may be their son. So Paul, the baby Paul, had not done the fingerprints in the hospital because he was taken so quickly after he was born. So they estimated at the time, based on the size of the child's ears, that it was a match. And now looking back, that's craziness. So the Fronczaks travel from Chicago to New Jersey, and they look at this little boy and they say, okay, that's our son. So Scott McKinley was later adopted and became Paul Joseph Fronczak. Well, when Paul's 10 years old, he finds a box with newspaper clippings about the kidnapping of this little baby named Paul. And he brings the newspapers to his mother, and she scolds him and she says, yes, you were kidnapped. We found you. We love you. That's all you need to know. Don't ever bring it up again. But there was this glaring fact that he could not get past, and that was that he did not look like anyone else in his family. So he doesn't bring up the subject to his parents for almost 40 years. But in 2012, he decides to take a DNA test, and they begrudgingly agree. The results are there was no remote possibility that the Fronczaks were his actual biological parents. So now you're gasping. You're just thinking this poor family, what they've been through, and what this man's sense of identity must be. So this group of genealogist volunteers called the DNA detectives offered to take up his case for free of charge in 2013. 2 years later, the group comes to him and they say they've identified him as Jack Rosenthal of Atlantic City, New Jersey, a boy that vanished in 1965. Now remember, they found the boy in the stroller in 1965 in July. They also share that he had a twin sister who had disappeared and her name was Jill. So you're thinking, where's the real baby Fronczak?
Right.
What happened to Jack Rosenthal? What happened to his twin sister? So Paul later met biological relatives, some of whom informed him that they had also seen him as a little boy with his twin sister Jill as children. And then suddenly they just seemed to disappear. His biological parents, Gilbert and Marie Rosenthal, would come up with excuses as to why those twins would no longer be there at family meetings. Family members also recalled that they had seen the twins badly abused and neglected. One family member said they had witnessed Jack and Jill sitting in a cage. Gilbert, the father, was described as an angry man after returning from the Korean War with PTSD. And Marie, the mother, was described as being a heavy alcoholic. Moreover, Susan Wohlert, who had babysat for the Rosenthals' older children, later told Paul Fronczak that when she had babysat for the family, Gilbert and Marie Rosenthal had told her, don't bother with the twins upstairs. Can you imagine that? A young girl who's like, 13, comes to babysit. And they say, don't go upstairs. If you hear babies crying, just forget about it. So, of course, out of curiosity, she goes upstairs and she finds Jack and Jill in a room, which was empty besides the little kids in the cribs. She said that Jack had a black eye and that they were both kids were very dirty and that the room had reeked of urine because their sheets had not been changed. So she spends the whole night with Jack and Jill. And then in the morning, Gilbert and Marie were furious when they came back and saw her in their room. And this girl, Susan, said that she had gotten the impression that the parents had been out all night partying because they smelled like alcohol. And you can imagine a 13-year-old girl. Like if you notice the smell of alcohol.
Yeah.
They both ended up dying in the 90s from cancer, Gilbert and Marie. So what's interesting too is that in 2019, a Michigan man named Kevin Ray Batty was identified as the real baby Paul Fronczak. He'd been kidnapped from that Chicago hospital in 1964, though his identity was not revealed into the public until 2020 when he died of cancer on his 56th birthday. I think that was his decision. He was obviously ill, and I think he would have been overwhelmed with the attention. Before his death, he spoke multiple times on the phone with Dora Fronczak, his biological mother. They had made plans to meet, but then he died of cancer. So his story was that he'd been raised by a woman by the name of Lorraine Fountain, who had been dating a doctor from Chicago when she suddenly moved to Arkansas for a year. But then she comes back with this baby and names him Kevin. That mother, Lorraine Fountain, who raised Kevin Beatty, who, as I mentioned, is the original baby Fronczak, she died in 2004. So we have no idea how Kevin got the last name. And the perpetrator of this kidnapping has never been identified to this day. The FBI investigation into the kidnapping remains open, but of course it has been all of these years. So the question really is, what happened with the real baby Fronczak? Who was this woman that went into the hospital and took him? And how did he become Kevin Beatty? And then the other question for you that I have is, Gilbert and Marie Rosenthal, why were they so neglectful of these twins? What happened with Scott McKinley, the boy that was put into foster care, who later was adopted and became Paul Fronczak? Why was he left alone in the stroller that day? And do you think it's possible that Jill, the twin sister, is out there somewhere?
Yeah, so that's definitely a lot. I think there's this. I think the best way I can explain it is like a woman that's dressed as a nurse comes and steals babies, and I'm using this as a reference, not a literal sense of what I'm about to say about like there's sex traffickers out there, unfortunately, but there's also baby traffickers at the same time where they go and back in the day and they'll take babies that are newly born that are really unidentified and kind of sell them to people or give them to people that can't have kids or want kids for whatever capacity that is. And that's what I see. It's like this woman who's done this many times. It doesn't seem like this is a one-time thing. And as far as like Jill goes, I think she was out there and I think she still is out there. Like, I think that they weren't too far apart from each other. Like, I think like if you're talking about New Jersey and like, I'm using this as an example as well, like New Jersey and PA, right? Like you're maybe in different states, but it's a drive. Like you can definitely get there. And that's what I see. And as far as like, you know, like Kevin or, you know, that fake name Kevin and all that, I think it's the same thing where a woman couldn't have a child and she was able to get a child.
So the baby broker, the baby ring person, she was maybe part of a system where she goes into hospitals and she took the baby. And then Lorraine, who has Kevin, may have been someone who's desperately wanted to have a baby. And I think I've also over the years, I've covered some of these cases where it is an illegal baby ring. And you have parents that are desperate to have a baby. And they don't always know what is going on in the background. And they almost look the other way.
Yeah, they kind of like know like some stuff is a little fugazi, you know, and they kind of like turn their cheek pretending like that they don't know that some of this stuff doesn't like really add up or go through like a real process of like adoption, like let's say like a real agency or something. But I also believe too, I mean, just working with law enforcement like a lot now, and then the technology that they have now versus what they had back then is like astronomically different. Yeah. You know, so like what this baby ring like that was like going on, you know, I think it's a little bit easier, and it's horrible to say, but to get away with it because there was like, one, no one probably thought this was ever going to happen, that someone was going to dress up as like a nurse or like a caregiver at the hospital where babies are due and just walk in where there's no name on where like these newborns are and just take them and walk out because you're, you know, no one would think about that really. But also there's no technology to do the fingerprints or to look back or CCTV or anything like that, where like now you walk down the street, there's cameras that we don't even know about that are like really watching to protect people. But that's another factor too. I mean, yes, it still goes on today, but I think it's a little bit easier back then to maneuver a baby ring.
A baby ring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is too, like to the earlier point where because of the Fronczak case, that's why they developed that pink bracelet, like the code pink, because to your point, I think the idea of someone walking through a hospital, walking into a room with someone who just gave birth to a baby and taking it, it was unthinkable. And I think it forever changed the way that hospitals handle security. And unfortunately, this man, Paul Fronczak, has been pulled into the center of this story. And it broke my heart because I think we all can kind of try to understand he was essentially 3 different names. So it's lifelong, you know, journey of like, what is my real identity?
Well, I think that's the hardest part is like when someone's trying to figure out like who they really are, right? Like your identity is completely gone. You don't even know really who your real family is. And it's not saying that the parents who raised him, that he doesn't love and respect, right? But there's always some type of like, when I do readings for people and we find out that their parents aren't really their parents, it brings a curiosity of who they are. They just want to know where they came from, who are their parents, like who's their family. Not that the adopted parents or the parents that, you know, raise them aren't special, because they are, but it does make, from what I see personally, like you want to get answers because your identity seems to be like questioned, like in their own mind, not like anyone else has questioned theirs. But I do understand like how it could have been such a mental screw for him, kind of being like, I have 3 different names. I'm learning all about this stuff. I have a twin sister. Like, what the heck is going on?
And you would be restless because then you hear the story about how you were found with a black and blue eye and you're in these cages. And then I can't understand. And I've been communicating with a woman. I'm hoping she comes on the podcast. She was unknowingly part of this 1960s study or this social experiment, if I had to be really specific, where they would separate twins and adopt them into other families just to see if there was any sort of natural panging for someone. And so a lot of people found out as adults that they had been separated from their twins. So, I mean, even having friends of my own that are twins, like the idea of being separated from someone that you shared, the beginning part of life is just like unimaginable. And I have to say, like, not that this story, is similar to mine, but, Casey is not my birth last name.
Yeah.
And that has always been kind of trippy for me in life is like, I hold the name of my stepfather, whom I had a horrible relationship with. So there is this sense of like, not feeling like you're totally in your own skin. Like I borrowed someone else's name and so having 3 different names, I can't even wrap my brain around that.
No, and just like not knowing who you really, like not who you really are, but where you came from must be hard to wrap your brain around too. Being like, there's a huge
by the way,
part. I don't know.
Now that I think about it, I kept my maiden name when I got married, and grateful Dan was upset about it for a hot minute and then got over it. But that's probably part of the reason I still go by my maiden name.
Probably
because it felt like too many names.
It could have been because that would have been your 3rd name.
Mm-hmm. Well, really 4th, because remember I was married when I was like 23. But when I got married to that guy, I added his last name, but I still had Casey as like in my last name.
A hyphen, yeah.
No hyphen, just like, and it did like a 3rd name. But then,
oh, you did? Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And then it just kind of like drifted off like a piece of wood into the water.
Piece of wood that just went out to the water.
Chopped that off. But yeah, that would have been actually my 4th. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not changing my name again. Forget
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, we both know that shopping for a rug can be challenging. You've either got insanely expensive handcrafted rugs or the mass-produced alternatives that won't hold up. But that's where Revival Rugs comes in. Revival's founders didn't want to spend thousands on a new rug, but they didn't want to settle for less either. Revival is a global company with teams in the U.S. as well as weaving regions in India, Turkey, and Morocco. Revival works with artisans to preserve rug-making traditions and pass on this value to you. Eliminating middlemen allows them to remove steep markups, giving you amazing value at incredible prices. And Revival's popular washable rugs have the look and feel of a real rug, so you don't have to sacrifice style for convenience. And my favorite, which I ordered, is the sweatshirt rug, and I also love the stripe rug. So spruce up your space with Revival Rugs. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20%. Let's face it, weight loss can feel overwhelming. That's why Hers is changing the game. By providing access to GLP-1 medications plus expert care, they make your goals more achievable. Hers is transforming women's healthcare by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers offers a holistic weight loss program with personalized solutions including compounded GLP-1 weekly injections featuring the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy or oral medication kits. So after submitting an online intake form, a licensed medical provider will determine what plan is best for you. And if prescribed, your program includes medication, ongoing care, and online support, and all at one cost. So if you've been struggling with your weight loss journey, it's time for you to find the best option that works for you through Hers. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KateCasey. That's forhers.com/KateCasey for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/KateCasey. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. I bring this story up of Paul Fronczak because I mentioned to Evan, the 9th grader, he has to watch this documentary. And by the way, everybody else can watch this documentary. It's called The Lost Sons, and you can watch it on Hulu and Amazon Prime, and it is a mind bender. And I feel like over the years, when I'm around kids in particular, like teenagers, college kids, that is one of them that I recommend that they get totally sucked into that story. Also, because when you start telling it, you're going to find yourself like, can you imagine? And then he pulls a piece of furniture back and there's this pile of clippings. And what would that be like? So anyway,
Right.
Hulu and Amazon Prime, it's called The Lost Sons. I highly recommend it. Also, you can listen to my interview with Paul Fronczak in episode 398. That is a really, really interesting interview too. Go back and I say to him in the beginning, I've been obsessed with your story since 2013 when I heard Barbara Walters tell it. Okay, so this other case I wanted to tell you about because I was talking to one of the dance moms yesterday and she mentioned that she had come across the story on Facebook of all places. And I was like, oh, wait, tell me what? Like, huh?
Yeah, like
okay.
Tell me more.
Now, there are some people that may be familiar with this because it was brought up on an episode of This American Life, probably about, I'm going to say like 7 years ago. But if you haven't heard, this is an older story, but this is a doozy. So this is about Bobby Dunbar. So Robert Clarence Bobby Dunbar was the firstborn child to Leslie and Percy Dunbar of Opelousas, Louisiana. He was born on May 23rd, 1908. Okay, so in 1912, so 4 years later, Bobby goes with his family on a fishing trip to Swayze Lake in Louisiana. Sometime during that day, 4-year-old Bobby disappears. At first, they believed he may have been eaten by an alligator, so the reptiles were caught and dissected in mass, if you can imagine this. So the theory was that the little boy had drowned, and it also gained traction that dynamite was thrown into the lake in an attempt to bring his body to the surface. It's fruitless. Oh, wow. A desperate search ensues. The local police and eventually the state police began a statewide manhunt for this little boy, with the Dunbars offering a reward for his return. So there's an 8-month search and the reward was raised. Authorities locate William Cantwell Walters of Barnesville, North Carolina, who had worked as a handyman. He specialized in the tuning and repairing of pianos and organs. So William Walters had been traveling through Mississippi with a boy who appeared to match the description of Bobby Dunbar. And I'm going to post these pictures so you can see. Now, it's like an old-timey photo, so you can even see through the photo, like, yes, there is definitely like a similarity to it. So William Walters claimed that the boy was actually Charles Bruce Anderson, who went by Bruce, the son of a woman that had worked for his family. He said that the little boy's mother was named Julia Anderson and that she had willingly granted him custody. And now you're asking yourself, who in the hell would do that, right? Well, Julia Anderson would later confirm this. William Walters was arrested and authorities sent for the Dunbars to come to Mississippi and attempt to identify the child because they live in Louisiana. So it's similar to the Fronczaks, where they go to Mississippi and they're looking at this little boy. So this is 1912. So take with it that this story, obviously is passed down. Newspaper accounts differ with regard to the initial reaction between this little boy and Leslie Dunbar. There's one account that indicated that the child immediately shouted, "Mother," upon seeing her, and the two then embraced. That sounds a little bit far-fetched to me. Mother. Another said that only the boy cried and quoted Leslie Dunbar saying she was unsure whether he was her son. And there are other newspaper accounts that stated that the Dunbars doubted his identity. There were similar contradictions in newspaper accounts of the boy's first sighting of the Dunbars' younger son, Alonzo, with one newspaper claiming that the boy recognized Alonzo instantly, called him by name and kissed him, with another saying that the boy showed no sign of recognizing Alonzo. The next day, after giving him a bath, Leslie Dunbar says that she positively identified his moles and scars and was certain that he was her son, and the child returned to Opelousas, Louisiana, with the Dunbars to a parade. There's much fanfare. They're celebrating this little boy's homecoming. Now, it made me reflect on something that Paul Fronczak had said about when the Fronczaks went to New Jersey to meet this little boy. And he asked in his, own polite way, like, why did you take me home? And I think that when you have all of these authorities that are standing around and you've lost your son, she felt like, okay, I'm going to make him my son. Like, I'm going to make it work because this little boy cannot be sent back and not have a home. And I suspect that could have been something that Leslie Dunbar may have felt as well. So back to Julia Anderson. Remember, William Walters is traveling with this little boy. He's going through Mississippi. He's originally from North Carolina. He says, this is the son, Bruce is the son of a family that I work for. The mother's name is Julia Anderson. So she arrives from North Carolina to support William Walters, who's been, arrested, the contention that the boy was in fact her son, Bruce. However, at the time, she's unmarried. She works as a field hand for his family. She is, does not have any resources. She says that she allowed William to take her son for only what was supposed to be a 2-day trip to visit one of his relatives. And then she further asserted that she had not consented for Walters to take her son for more than a few days. So she's probably, overwhelmed with the son. She doesn't have a lot of money. She has to work. She says, okay, you can take him for 2 days. And I can't even begin to wrap my brain around why is this little boy going, like, I hope William Walters was not a horrible person. So according to newspaper accounts, Julia was presented with 5 different boys who were of the same approximate age as her son, including the boy who had been claimed by the Dunbars. When the boy in question was presented, he reportedly gives no indication that he recognized her. She asked whether he was the boy recovered, but was not given an answer. And finally declared, she's like, I'm unsure. She saw the child again the next day, undressed, just to check for moles and stuff. She indicated a strong certainty that the boy was indeed her son, Bruce. However, word had already spread about her failure to positively identify him on the first attempt. This, combined with the fact that the newspapers questioned her moral character in having had 3 children, the other 2 were deceased by that point, out of wedlock, led to claims about her, kind of being dismissed. Right. Again, she can't afford a lawyer. The court eventually rules in favor of the Dunbars. The Dunbars retain custody of this little boy, who proceed to live out the remainder of his life as Bobby Dunbar. Julia eventually begins a new life in Mississippi. She marries. She had 7 children.
Holy crap.
According to her descendants, she became a devout Christian. She helped found a church and served as a nurse and a midwife to the small community that she lived in. Despite her new life, she spoke often of her lost son and that their family had always regarded him as being kidnapped by the Dunbars. She died in February of 1940 and it was buried in Mississippi. So the Anderson family said that a man had come to visit their town and talked extensively with several of the relatives. They believe that man was Bobby Dunbar. So that leads us to believe Bobby Dunbar is confused and may not feel like he's a fit in his own family. He's searching for answers. So that little boy who grew up as Bobby Dunbar got married. He had 4 children of his own. He ran a gas station. At one point in 1954, Bobby Dunbar Jr., so this man's son, asked his father if he was sure he was really Bobby Dunbar or not. And his father responded, I know who I am and I know who you are, and nothing else makes a difference. Bobby Dunbar died on March 8th, 1966, and was laid to rest in Louisiana. His widow died in 1994 and was interred next to her husband. Now, in 1999, 33 years after Bobby Dunbar's death, one of his granddaughters, Margaret Dunbar Cutright, begins her own investigation of the events. So she's pouring through newspaper accounts, interviews the children of Julia Anderson, examines the notes and the evidence presented by William Walters' defense attorney for his kidnapping and trial and appeal. She eventually begins to doubt her grandfather was the real Bobby Dunbar, even though she really wanted him to be. In 2004, after an AP reporter approached the family about the story, Bobby Dunbar Jr. consented to undergoing DNA tests. The results showed that Bobby Dunbar Jr. was not related to his cousin, the son of Alonzo Dunbar, who was the younger brother of Bobby Dunbar Jr. So he was not the original Bobby Dunbar.
Wow.
So Margaret came to believe that the real Bobby Dunbar most likely fell into Swayze Lake during the fishing trip and was eaten by an alligator. But of course, as I noted, they seemed to do everything in their power to try to locate whether or not the alligator, there seemed to be any signs of a child that was dying. So she's also said that her findings had sown discord with her own family, as the majority of the grandfather's children and grandchildren great-grandchildren considered themselves to be members of the Dunbar family. So then you have the aftermath, like, well, we're not actually related to you. So my question for you is, what happened to the original Bobby Dunbar? Did he fall into the lake and drown? But wouldn't they have found his body?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough because like they definitely didn't get every single like crocodile or alligator. I mean, I just went to Louisiana and like
they're vicious.
They're vicious and there's a lot of them.
Right.
And there's a lot that we don't even see. I just heard a story also. I forgot where I heard this, but there was like in one of the hurricanes, there was a flood. Someone went down to the basement, and the wife was like upstairs and he had to go to the shed to get something. Well, he disappeared. And they were like, well, they live near a swamp, right? Like, so like the swamp water's out there. Actually, I heard this when I was in New Orleans, actually. And from like the alligator tour people, like they were like, this is like how people don't really understand how alligators like can operate and how smart they are. So essentially what happened was he never came upstairs. And the wife's like, where is he? And so they did the same thing. They went after every single alligator as much as they could find. Luckily, because the alligator was so big, it was like one of like a unicorn type of like the size of it. They found they found this guy like almost 6 months later because the alligators are smart. And what they do is they don't eat someone full. So they take it and they hide the body. So when they're hungry, they go back and eat the arm. They go back and eat the leg. So it could be very possible that this alligator or something, he drowned and, the alligator like disposed of the body. And the body was far away from where the house was. Like,
got it. Okay.
So
it could be a similar situation.
It could be. I mean, I find it.
And he was only 4 years old, so that's small.
And I don't know. I just find it that it would be very difficult to like with all that stuff that happened. And yes, it happened in like 1912, you said, and like over 100 years ago. So technology again is not there. But I do believe that the boy drowned.
Oh, do you think that the Dunbar parents, deep in their heart of hearts, much like the Fronczaks, they knew? Because the Fronczaks said to Paul, we refuse to do a DNA test because, and Dora's interviewed in The Lost Sons, and she just says, it wouldn't change the fact that you're my son.
100%. And that's how like most of those parents are. They like, it's not the same comparison, but I'm sure people like I do that lie, but they believe their lies so intently that it wouldn't change the outcome, even if you were to tell them. But then you take the true love of a son and a mom or a mom, and no matter what the circumstances, they're still going to love them no matter what.
Oy, what a doozy. Two crazy stories. Well, I'm going to post the pictures of the two little boys so people can see. Again, remember, this is the early, this is like 1912. So, the picture is not as clear and crisp as it would be in 2025. But just so unimaginable to think about being separated from your child. And here are two really just mind-bending stories. Again, it's called The Lost Sons. You can watch it on Hulu or Amazon Prime. And go back and listen to my interview with Paul in episode 398. Tell everybody about your show and what you're working on this week.
Yeah, so my show is called Connect with Jonathan Mark. It's a podcast. I work a lot with law enforcement with like unsolved cases or missing persons. And this week's case is missing person Peter Martin. He went missing literally a year ago, like maybe a week ago. It's a 1-year anniversary of it. It took place in Minnesota in one of the Indian reservations. So it was kind of a unique missing person case that I've worked on. I've never worked on one that it was strictly in an Indian reservation with the law enforcement within that reservation. And for people that don't know, they go by districts. So they don't go by counties. They don't go by towns. So each district has their own law enforcement. So like when someone crosses a district, it's like now have to involve the other districts like law enforcement. So I'm just trying to help out these families. And, I'm very fortunate enough that like a lot of families reach out to me and, help. And I really encourage you guys to listen to it because it's a really good episode.
And I'm going to have you back because I started watching a doc series that's going to come out next month about the Gilgo serial killers. And, you worked on that, and I'm really eager to kind of walk through those crimes. Well, that is another mind-bending story. So if there are people listening and they're really into true crime stuff, especially serial killer stuff, Jonathan will be back. Again, he was involved in that investigation. So tell everybody where they can find your podcast and where they can follow you.
Yeah, so my podcast, it's on Apple or Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. It's called Connect with Jonathan Mark. And my Instagram, Jonathan Mark Medium, has all the updates for the shows on there.
Thank you so much.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my great guest, my buddy Jonathan, and remind you to click subscribe. Make sure that you leave a 5-star review. I'd love to go over 7,000. So if you would be good enough to leave a review if you have not already done so, please make sure that you're also subscribed to my What to Watch list, which is a fantastic list of what to watch in unscripted TV, so you don't miss any of these reality shows or documentaries or series that pop up during the week. And then also bonus episodes by going to patreon.com/KCasey. And please follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KKCCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter and Threads and Blue Sky at KKC. Check back tomorrow for an all-new episode. And check over at Juicy Scoop. I will be a guest on Heather's show on Thursday. And I will also be on Pink Shade later this week, too, talking about The Con Mom on Netflix.
Imagine this. You help your little brother land a great job abroad. But when he arrives, the job doesn't exist. Instead, he's trapped in a heavily guarded compound, forced to sit at a computer and scam innocent victims, all while armed guards stand by with shoot-to-kill orders. Scam Factory, the explosive new true crime podcast from Wondery, exposes a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire operating in plain sight. Told through one family's harrowing account of sleepless nights, desperate phone calls, and dangerous rescue attempts, Scam Factory reveals a brutal truth. The only way out is to scam their way out. Follow Scam Factory on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge all episodes of Scam Factory early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.